I think we'll go ahead and get started now that we have 8 attendees. Maybe others will join us pretty soon. And I'm recording this meeting today so that I can, hopefully we won't have any glitches in creating the link and sending it out so that I'll be able to share with those who could not join the meeting today or join us on time. So once again, welcome to the February monthly SPA coordinators meeting with Kate. And to begin with, I would like to thank all of you and congratulations on this greatly successful fall 2018 SPA review cycle. And we did have 493 SPA reports last cycle from 126 providers. And I have to say, we started posting the reports, the final reports, 2 or 3 days in advance, and by the deadline, which was February 1st, almost 100% were posted. I think except a couple that we were still working on with one of our SPA coordinators. But your response rates were fabulous. We figured that setting up an internal CAPE staff deadline where we get all the questions to you at least a week or so in advance so that you have ample time to get back to us with the revisions needed. And this is working great for all of us here. So once again, congratulations, kudos to you, your reviewers and your audit team. Great job. And we did, I'll have to admit that this time, I think the number of edits that we had were very few, very limited. And only a couple of things we thought as CAPE staff, as we were brainstorming after the final report posting about any things that we needed to share with you, any concerns that you might want to take to your reviewers for the next review cycle, and there weren't a lot, except for a couple. And the first one is, as you know, some of the SPAs continue to require the 80% pass rate as a requirement for national recognition. So in Part A of the reviewer report of the SPA decision report, you provide whatever input you have, whether the a program meets or doesn't meet your expectations of the requirements, the 80% pass rate requirement. But for those SPAs, and the majority of you do not require the 80% pass rate. In that case, just go ahead and tell your reviewers to check not applicable, because it doesn't apply for your SPA really, because when it comes to standard 1 evidence, you already would have provided any input or comments in Part B, C, D, areas for consideration and conditions. So you will have ample space to talk about that. The 80% doesn't really apply for you. And so that was one. And I think Lewis had one of the things that he wanted to discuss or pinpoint regarding linked reports. Lewis, if you're available.
Yes, I'm available. Hi, everybody. Yeah, so one thing that we noticed this cycle when it came to linked reports is we noticed a few comments that were left in some of the reports stating to see bachelor's program for comments. Moving forward in the future, it's always important to make sure that those comments, well, it's actually really important to complete the master shell first, so that all the information from the master shell can go into the subsequent shells. But in the event that you have to change something or add something, make sure that the comments that you would like to be in each report are in each report, because the person reviewing your reports may not have access to, whatever report shell that you're mentioning to get these comments. That was the only thing I wanted to mention, so thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Lewis. And once again, linked reports can be a little bit tricky, both on the program's end and on the reviewer's end. So when the program is requesting shells, we have to make sure that we are linking them adequately per their request. And also when you as reviewers or your reviewing team works on those, the team would really have to make sure that each of the linked reports should have comments pertaining to that particular program or degree or certification area, because in science there can be several certification areas. So be very particular and specific, and also foreign languages, that there can be specific licensure areas in among the linked reports. So be very specific, although the comments might be very same copy paste from the main report, but make sure they're still there. Just like Lewis mentioned, the person who is reviewing the report on the EPP's end might not have access to the other reports. Who knows what their situation is. So we just want to make sure each SPA decision report is complete in itself, and we do not want to refer to the other see that report or this report. I know it's easier because of the volume of the reports that reviewers have to deal with at times, but it becomes very problematic for programs, especially when you are trying to make a point that, okay, there are very specific concerns or ideas we want to share with you, program, so that you are being directed in the in the right way, so that you can be successful next time. Be very, very, very intentional in the guidance you provide them for in each case. So those were the only two we had input, the lessons learned from this fall cycle. Do you have any questions or concerns or anything to add to what we have, your experiences per se, from what you have noticed in fall? Anyone who would be interested, you can type your message or I can unmute you. If you indicate, if you raise your hands, I can unmute you. I'm trying to see if anyone has. Okay, then I'll just move on. Because what excites us more is what's about to come, which is the spring review cycle, right? And we already have 437 program reports as when I last checked from 84 institutions. Numbers, of course, are going to be far more than what you are seeing now, because many programs request their shells at the last moment. And I know Lewis had been creating reports, even creating shells even a few minutes back. So this number could be outdated right now. Besides the numbers, a few reminders about the dates. I know you were pros and you were already but as on our end, we would still like to make sure that you share these dates, very important dates, with your reviewers and review teams. If you are sending out any newsletters or any other communications, make sure you include these dates so that they are aware of what to expect. So the conflict of interest for the spring review cycle, conflict of interest surveys, we intend to send them out by March 29th. April 8th would be the date by which we are expecting them to complete the surveys, so that you have ample time to make reviewer assignments for the reports, and each team can complete and submit a team report by the June 1st deadline. Otherwise, the audit team doesn't get ample time to finish their audit reports, and in turn, CAPE staff would not get ample time to conduct the technical edits with the, kind of paying the kind of attention that is needed. And since it's so time consuming with this large number of reports that we have to go through. So it has a domino effect kind of a thing, being timely. So starting with the conflict of interest, we'll make sure staff sends out the conflict of interest surveys on time by March 29th. Ask your reviewers to look out for the surveys. If they do not hear from us 2 or 3 days around March 29th, feel free to ask them to contact us. Ask them to check their junk email folder. Sometimes they land up over there. So yeah, we'll be in communication very soon regarding, very soon after the March 15 deadline for programs that are going to submit this spring. So we are trying to get pumped up about the cycle, and I'm sure you are as well. The one thing we do want to keep remind you is about the scope of program review that gets processed through our Accreditation Information Management System, which is AIMS. You know that programs that are pursuing CAPE accreditation can be reviewed using AIMS, and those include really programs that lead to P through 12 licenses, certificates, or endorsements. Fall within our scope and will be reviewed as part of this PAR review process or the CAPE accreditation process. And if there are any non-licensure degree programs that EPPs were under the impression under NCATA TAC that they had to conduct review for those, and if you come across those, identify them, or while you are in communication with a particular provider, they mention to you about such non-licensure programs being reviewed, please advise them not to delete from the system, but to archive them in the system so that they do not completely lose the information from prior reviews, but they archive it so that these programs should not be showing up while they're submitting annual reports to CAPE, reporting on what has changed or not, any new programs that are being offered, or ones that are being deleted. That needs to be updated and reflected, and based on the archival system, based on any removal or addition of non-licensure program and removal of non-licensure programs. So always advise them to keep themselves updated so that at the time of accreditation they are well prepared, and to make sure that they are not doing something that they are really not required to do, because this takes a lot of their effort as well. And this consequently leads to those programs. So previous slide, we are talking about programs that are seeking program review through CAPE using our platform, right? The next question is, more and more, we are being contacted, you are being contacted by providers who might not be interested in pursuing CAPE accreditation, but they still want to pursue SPA national recognition. So what's the process? What's the protocol? What's the expectations for them? You set up those expectations. If you have a system in place outside of AIMS, please make sure you communicate that to the provider. You do not have to involve or engage with CAPE in any way. If it is done outside of CAPE scope, it's your right to do or control that process. However, it was also brought to our attention, sometimes we kind of use the terms accreditation and national recognition interchangeably. Currently, there are 3 SPAs that work with CAPE to provide national recognition to programs in EPPs that are pursuing accreditation through CAPE. And they have that national recognition process, and they're outside of this process. They also have a parallel identity as an accrediting agency, and they have an accreditation protocol in place. So someone who is not pursuing CAPE accreditation can contact those spas. I'm not shy about mentioning their name because they're doing a great job. NAYC, ALA, and NASP, so Early Childhood School Psychologists and Library Association, they have their own accreditation processes in place. They might lead to national recognition or accreditation, whatever they choose to call it. It's their own process and their own platform and requirements. It has nothing to do with CAPE. So if some of you who do not have a national recognition process outside of CAPE and you are interested in trying to figure out how that can be done, feel free to communicate with your colleagues at NAYC or ALA or NASP, but understand that they might be having an accreditation process in place, not necessarily something that is a small-scale spa review. Those two things are different because accreditation involves site visits and an extensive review of that program, and not really a parallel with the SPA national recognition process. So I know many of you reached out to each other, and I just wanted to make sure that we, on our end, on CAPE's end, we are very clear about how we communicate with you or what we tell you. So any questions or comments regarding that part? Today, all of you have been very quiet. I'm not seeing any typed comments in here. No raised hands. All righty, then I'll move on. Once again, these SPA national recognition processes, if you have one outside of CAPE, you own it, and you do not need to inform CAPE or anyone about it. It might be a CHIA, the Council for Higher Education Accreditation, involved with them, but nothing to do with CAPE. So. Now coming on to the other topic of revision of SPA standards. I know many of you, some of you have already got your standards accepted, so congratulations. You are now working on many other details that follow, but some of you, some others are really working on developing their standards. They might be well ahead of revising their standards, have got preliminary feedback, but those who have not yet started, those who have not yet reached that advanced stage of standards development or renewal process, a few reminders for you. Remember that SPA standards are revisited every 7 years. So, and you need to really plan for it way ahead of time. I say 2 to 3 years conservatively, but you know, way more, I would suggest. Keep thinking about it even for 4 years, 3 to 4 years before the standards are due for a revision. You might start with convening a standards development committee, and make sure when you are thinking about forming a committee for standards development, it has members from your review team, the SPA review team, and also experts from the field. So reviewers are also experts in the field, but not only researchers who know what is important for the field, but also people who know what the SPA review structure is. Otherwise, what happens is the way the standards are developed are sometimes removed from the actual SPA review process. So the implementation part and the standards part, standards become very abstract, and the implementation part, which needs to be, you know, very structured, it's very hard to connect those two pieces. So the best mix is to have experts in the field with reviewers in the field engaged in the process. So please make sure that whoever is putting the standards development committee together, sometimes it's the SPA coordinator who's taking the lead, so great. But sometimes it's the SPA executive leadership who might need some guidance or help from the SPA coordinators and suggestions on what could be a good SPA standards committee, the members, the nature of people who need to be there, the qualifications, the experiences they need to bring to the table in order to be very successful in the standards development process. So that's a quick suggestion, easy for the success of the SPAs in developing their standards. Always, please engage your leadership team because they need to support this standards development process so that they understand the rigor involved, the time involved, and the resources involved in this process, and that whoever is coordinating the process feels well supported by leadership with time and resources. So engage them, and we always recommend that you submit 1 year or 2 years out standards document applications in advance so that you get some formative feedback on these standards directions where you're headed, whether you're heading the right direction or not, whether the format or structuring of the standards are in place or not. These are very helpful guidance that you can get from the SPA Standards Committee well ahead of time. So these are some tips from our end. But once your standards are accepted, that is a rigorous process, and those of you who have already gone through the process know how, what a big deal it is. But once the standards get accepted, please do not let the enthusiasm in you die down, because we have seen that sometimes what happens is the standards get accepted and they get shared among the providers who are very enthusiastic about adopting the standards and implementing them. They need to know what your transition plan is. They need to know when the old standards are going out and the new standards are kicking in. And you have to be mindful of that. Their site visits are coming up. Their initial review might be starting in a couple of years or next year, and they have to keep in mind your transition. So if your standards are out and you have not shared with CAPE or on your website any transition plan, that is a problem, because the standards are of no value if they cannot be used effectively and on time by the providers. And also, along with the transition information, they need the actual templates that will be used for the review purposes. So please make sure that once your standards get accepted, you put these things into place immediately. Please do not sit on them, because we have experiences that EPPs are struggling and we cannot help them because these two things are not in place. Even 6 months, 7 months after the standards have been accepted, and also resources for these programs. They're just starting off. Give them some ideas, some evidence guides, some rubric examples of what would be a great way to address your new standards and understand your new standards, some highlights of your new standards and how they're different from your old ones. So please make sure you have this in place once your standards get accepted. All right. Those are important things, especially reminders for SPAs who already have their standards approved and are not yet ready with their resources. Please, we request you to get those ready on time. The EPPs we are receiving emails and phone calls from them every day to have those pieces ready. And also, those of you, those of you spas who are working on developing the standards, feel free to contact me if you need any guidance on, any rubric or any template or the document that needs to be referred, that you need to refer to develop your standards. I'll be more than happy to share any resources that I can. If you need a meeting with, one of the SPA Standards Committee members, I can maybe schedule one. I cannot promise, given their, busy schedules. At least I'll give it a try to connect you guys and answer any questions that you might have. Now, coming to the to the quarterly newsletter, the update newsletters that we send out to all spas. So remember, our newsletters are meant to inform all spa coordinators, their reviewers, auditors, spa leadership, everyone who exists in your world, connected with you and your review process and your organization in the context of the spa review program. We reach out to all of you through this newsletter. Please make sure that you read once you receive the newsletters, because sometimes we select FAQs for the newsletters each time and send it out. And 1 week after the newsletter has gone, we hear back from one of you asking the same questions that were addressed in the newsletter. So if you receive them, please make sure because these have updates from your peer spas, from your peer reviewers, from your peer spa coordinators about what's going on in their world, and it might be helpful for you. They're sharing resources, ideas through this newsletter. So please pay attention to this newsletter. Ask your leadership, your executive directors or presidents to read them when they receive it, because it tells a lot about what's going on in the spa world. And also, Lewis McIlvain, my colleague, is the point of contact. If you want to share any updates, please reach out to him, because he puts that newsletter together and publishes it. If you have any review experiences that were great and resources, like Kerry shared last time from ALA, on how the resources or the format, the template they have for evaluating their reviewers. It was very helpful. I thought it could be very helpful for other spa coordinators to use. So we shared it through our newsletter. So you might have similar other resources and helpful tips for standards development. For those of you who already did it, please feel free to reach out to us, tell your story, share it with your colleagues who are in the process right now. So what did you learn from it? What the other spas should be aware of as they're preparing to develop their standards. So reach out to Lewis with those pieces of information. If you want to write up something, let him know. And if you have spa updates, like change in leadership or a new spa coordinator or a new reviewer, new standards updates, anything, transition timelines, if you have those, reach out to us. Once again, for newsletter purposes, reach out to Lewis. And once you have been successfully accepted, and say you have successfully reviewed one cycle using your new standards, you might have some insights to share on how to write a successful spa report with your other colleagues. Because remember, this newsletter is being read by your reviewers as well. So if you have any insights regarding writing a successful spa report, it will be seen by your review team, your audit team, and the reviewers of other spas who can get ideas from you. So please don't be shy about reaching out and voicing what you have and sharing with the rest of the field. Wanted to remind you that CAPE is always, here to help you out with any refresher trainings that you want to conduct online. Sabeta is still conducting, helping out or coordinating. If you reach out to her, she can help you set up online trainings, refresher trainings for you using AIMS. Or if you're doing it in any other way, refresher trainings, and you want us to share that information through our weekly newsletters, feel free to do so. We have done that for other spas, for some spas, and we can happily do for others. Just let us know what you want the field to know about, and there are dates, people to the contact information, any links, resources. We'll be happy to share that. And remember to track your reviewers, your review teams, their performances, any typical errors that are sticking up that your review teams might need some refresher trainings on. Make a list, reach out, write a note, a thank you note with some suggestions for next time, any way that you want to reach out to them and make sure next time the same errors are not being done. So that's a reminder from our end. And as always, we never get tired of asking you to provide us with assessment samples, updated ones, because some spas still on our CAPE website, there is a page assigned to each spa, and some spas still are missing sample assessments. EPPs are really appreciative when spas share some samples, that it gives them some ideas about, what can go wrong and what might not, what your expectations are, because not everything can be written down on a piece of paper on the template. So any guidance you can have, you can share through the assessment samples would be very appreciated. If you have webinar links, like I know NCTE has, and if you think that we have not yet shared your webinar links on our website as a resource, let us know. Contact us. Let us know that your website needs to be updated. Can you please share this link as resource with EPPs? Will be happy to do that. The programs, if you want to know which programs are coming up for review next this coming fall or next spring, we'll be happy to share that information with you so that you can reach out to them in advance and remind them of anything, key reminders, key assessments, key information that you think they should be mindful about while writing the reports. We'll be happy to share that information. And also reach out to your prospective reviewers in advance to make sure they know how many reviewers, when the review load will be more and you will be needing extra reviewers, extra hands. Start the recruitment process way ahead of time. And of course, do not miss out on those refresher trainings, because sometimes people miss out, even the experienced reviewers, they might miss out on the updated information on your end, on our end. So to keep them in loop, bring them back to your trainings. And before I move to my end slide, I would just like to pause for any questions, comments. I see that Joan has written, Joan After from ELCC, and now NELP standards. Their standards got approved and accepted, and they are working on, they already have a transition plan in place, and she said she's working with the executive director to come up with a guide and possibly finalize the templates. Thank you, Joan. Pam is writing, oh, okay. Her name is showing as different, someone different. So, okay, so Pam has requested us to send her the programs that are coming up for review in fall 19 and spring 2020. I'm writing it down, Pam, so that we can send it to you, the list. Either Sabeta or Lewis will get in touch with you with a list. Lauren Hogan, thank you. Anyone else? Who might want to share any insights before we end? If not, we'll keep it short. And we are almost. It's only 35 minutes, and it seems we have exhausted the topics to share and discuss. Maybe more stuff that will come up next time, because we are not meeting in March. We are meeting in April, though. March is a busy time, and throughout March, I'm traveling extensively, and I know you'll be setting yourself up for the spring review cycle. It's a busy time, but we will meet in April 23rd. However, if you think there is an urgency, there are some topics that need to be highlighted and shared with your colleagues, please feel free to reach out to me, to Zabeta, to Louis, to let us know of those topics so that we can share it with all of you as heads up. And while you are preparing for the next successful SPA review cycle. So thanks to all of you. April 23rd, which is also a Tuesday, 2:30 to 3:30 will be our next meeting, and we'll see you then. Bye.